the fifth page of the book. We are in Ois Gimel, page Ches in the Maimer, and we were talking about the Amshacha of Oir HaMemale versus the Oir HaSoivev. We're going into a lot of classic ideas about the Hamshacha of the Oir HaMemale versus the Oir HaSoivev to be able to explain that the idea of a nest, which the Emek HaMelech brings down, and then the idea of Nisim, the idea of Schar Mitzvah, the Emek HaMelech brings down is the level of Soivev, and the same way the idea of a nest has to do with Schar Mitzvah, because we know that Menakin Lo Mizrach Yoisa, the person has a nest, they remove from his chusim. The microphone is on, so I'm not sure. Anybody else having hearing issues? The microphone is on, and it shows basically that the working, like stuff jumping up and down. Rowan, how's your sound working? You hear? Zev, Dr. Ravnoy, I see that the microphone by you is not even hooked up. All I see is a video symbol. I don't see any mic symbol next to your name.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, so I think there's something wrong on your side, Dr. Ravnoy. You want to try maybe logging out and logging in again? Would you like to try that? Actually, you don't hear me. Let me put this out of here. You hear me? I hear you.
Yes, I hear you.
Now you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So back to what we were saying. Before I get back to the main screen over here. Okay. So we were talking about that since someone that has a miracle happen to him, we see that Nisim and their union of the Schar Mitzvah are on the same level. And to explain that, he started going into a full explanation of the difference between Oir HaMemale and Oir HaSoivev. And Oir HaMemale is something that's felt. We feel that we're alive, even though we might not be aware that it's a lakus. But Oir HaSoivev, we don't feel it, and this is the Oir HaSoivev doesn't have his chalkus and doesn't have pratim, whereas the Oir HaMemale has his chalkus and has pratim, and so on. So now he's going to go back to the topic of explaining the idea of the Schar Mitzvahs having to do with Amshachas or HaSoivev, and from that to the idea of the nest. So again, we're holding Ois Gimel, page test, line 7. In Schar Mitzvahs, the idea of the reward of the mitzvahs is Amshachas or HaSoivev. What's the idea of the reward of the mitzvahs? The reward of the mitzvahs is drawing down the light of Soiv Kalam, the light of Soiv Kalam. That means in its source and in its root, that's the level of the Oiden Sof Shalifnei Atzimtzum. Okay, Nisrael, Emek HaMelech, like we mentioned before from the Emek HaMelech, Shaydei HaMitzvahs Mamshichim as Oiden Shalifnei Atzimtzum, through mitzvahs, we draw down the light from prior to the tzimtzum. Therefore, this Hamshacha that takes place through Torah mitzvahs is not something that's revealed in the world. And the effect that's occurring through Torah mitzvahs is not something that's recognizable in a revealed way in the world. Though through fulfilling the mitzvah, it's drawn down a makif light on the person that fulfills the mitzvah. It's brought down in Tanya from the Gemara, from the Maimon Chazal, that it's a mitzvah to give honor and to rise before someone that's involved in the performance of a mitzvah. Even if the person that's performing the mitzvah in and of himself has no reason to demand respect. He's an amaretz, he's a bored, he's an ignoramus, and so on. So the reason why we must rise is because of the drawing down and what the mitzvahs cause to come down upon the person and so on. But still in all, the Rebbe continues in line 18, that hamshach, just like Sov Kalam in general, is something that we said is concealed, not like Mamal Kalam that the person feels that he's alive. Also, what mitzvahs do, that they draw down the Oir HaSoviv, that is something that's completely concealed. So he goes on to elaborate on what that concealment is. So he says in line 19, not only does he not understand the nature and what is being revealed, so that's one thing. It's like we said before, you could understand and feel that you're alive without realizing that life is godliness. But that's not the problem here with Ohr HaTorah. That's not the problem with the makif that's being brought down through the mitzvahs. But rather, he doesn't feel at all the revelation when he performs a mitzvah. He doesn't feel that there's anything happening. Not like when he's alive. I feel that I'm alive. I feel that there's a chayes within me. He doesn't feel anything. So, but perhaps we feel something else. We feel the effect of the mitzvah in another regard. What's the effect of the mitzvah in the other regard? The mitzvah, also the idea that one mitzvah draws in its wake another mitzvah. This means that the fulfillment of one mitzvah affects the body and the animal soul, that they should want to fulfill additional mitzvahs. There's another version of this that some people remember that differently. The Rebbe said that it affects the nefesh halakis the way it was enclosed in nefesh habamis to want to do another mitzvah. So we do feel something. So what are you telling me? That mitzvah draws down the Ohr HaSoviv, the Ohr HaSoviv, and we don't feel anything of it. We do feel something. We feel the way it draws me to do another mitzvah. So the Rebbe continues in line 23. Also, in this matter, he doesn't feel the revelation of the mitzvah. He doesn't know by himself. He doesn't know. He cannot really figure out why does he want to do another mitzvah. Rather, the mitzvah is drawing him in a way of like automatically. He doesn't even realize. It pushes him and it draws him and it pulls him to fulfill another mitzvah. That's why the expression is gereres. Literally, gereres means dragging something. When you like pulling something on the ground, you would use the word gerder. So the same thing over here, that the mitzvah is like, he doesn't know why he wants to do the other mitzvah. He doesn't feel all of a sudden an awareness of mitzvahs. All of a sudden, I did a mitzvah. I appreciated mitzvahs. I appreciated Ohr Sof. I had some type of revelation. Nothing like that. The person's completely unaware. He did one mitzvah. Suddenly, something internally is pulling him towards it. Something internally is pushing him towards it, but he doesn't even necessarily make the association. You know why I have an urge to do this mitzvah? Because a minute ago or a week ago, I did that mitzvah. He doesn't even know what or why. It's not revealed whatsoever. He doesn't feel the revelation of the mitzvah. So that's what it means over here. That that it draws down the Ohr HaSoviv, and just like the Ohr HaSoviv in all regards, it's not something revealed. The same thing by doing a mitzvah, the Ohr HaSoviv is also not revealed. But in addition to this, just like the Ohr HaSoviv and the Amshacha that comes down through Torah mitzvahs. are concealed in the world, top of page Yud, Ba'olam Hazeh, in this world, U'ba'olam is Bri Yitzir Asiyah, and it's also concealed in the worlds of Bri Yitzir Asiyah. So the Rebbe is going to add, even in the world of Atzilus, it's also concealed. Similar to this, it's also in the world of Atzilus. We know that when a person performs a mitzvah and he learns Torah, he davens, he makes what's called yichudim el yonim. It's a lot in Kabbalah about the unions between the different spheres. He makes a union and a mating and a marriage between Chachma and Bina, or he makes a union and a mating between marriage between Zah and Malchus, and similar types of unions. And therefore, through them being united and joined, there's more energy from Chachma and Bina, more energy from Zah and Malchus, and so on. But the Rebbe says, even though through Torah mitzvahs I'm making these yichudim al yonim and atzilus, even in atzilus there are behelim, not just there are behelim in this world, not just there are behelim in the world of creation, b'ri yitzira asiyah, but even in the world of atzilus there are also behelim. Let's explain in a different place. This additional increase in light that's drawn down Natzilus through Torah mitzvahs is like something that's in a box. It's like something that's in a chest. It's in a treasure chest. It's in storage, but it still needs to be opened up. And when is it going to be opened up? When Mashiach comes. So in other words, even Natzilus is like not something that's manifesting a change in Atzilus and so on in a revealed fashion. Why is that so? Why can't Atzilus at least have it? Atzilus is alakus. It's one Iwech because Oira Soiviv is beyond the limitations of world. It's line 6. Since the world of Atzilus is after all a world, and since it's a world, so it's Bechlal, Seder Ishtalshlus, it's part of the chain order of the center of the world. Therefore, it's impossible to be in it a revelation of the light of Soiv Kol Almin because it's Seder Ishtalshlus, and Oira Soiv is higher than Seder Ishtalshlus. Rak lost only in the future. Then it will be fulfilled where it says that Hashem will become revealed. The glory of Hashem will become revealed. Then it will become revealed the effect of Torah mitzvahs and the drawing down of the light of Soiv and the drawing down of the light before the tzimtzum. This is what it means, that the reward of a mitzvah is not to be found in this world. The schar mitzvah, this is on Lashon Chazal. Don't expect the reward of the mitzvah in this world. The simple meaning is don't expect reward over here. But the deeper meaning is we just identified the level of reward with Soiviv. This world cannot contain, Olam Hazeh, before Mashiach comes, cannot contain and cannot be a receptacle for the Oira Soiviv. This Char mitzvah, Sham Shachas Oira Soiviv, the reward of the mitzvah, that's the drawing down the light of Soiviv. It's impossible for it to be revealed in this world and the general Seder Ishtalshus. And only in the future it will be revealed. In the future, the primary Shechina will be down here below. What does it mean, primary Shechina? Ikir Shechina Daika, specifically the Ikir part of the Shechina. What does the Ikir part indicate? By emphasizing the word Ikir, that tells us it's not talking about the limited, divided world of the levels of the Malkulam, but rather the light of Soivkulam. And even higher, the level of Hashem's essence, the main aspect of Hashem's essence. And that revelation of the Ikar Shechina will be specifically down here below. Next paragraph, line 21 on page Yud. The idea behind this is the there's a lot of referencing over here to the Basel Agani of Tafshin Yud of the Frierdiker. In the light of a Malkalam, there's a difference. There's divisions in the type of revelation, the way it's in the higher worlds, to the revelation, the way it is, the manner of the revelation, the way it's in the lower worlds. In the higher worlds, the revelation is much more revealed. In the lower world, even when we refine the material nature of the lower world, and also the way the lower worlds were prior to the sin, that the light was revealed also in this world. It's not similar to the type of revelation, the way it's in the higher world. In other words, even before the Chet Etzadas, the way the oil of Memalakalam was down here in this world, it's completely not the same to the higher worlds. One might say, I understand, after the Chet Etzadas, there was a concealment, all the worlds fell, everything came mixed up, the Clippus came mixed up with the good. No. This low world was still a lower world. And because it's lower, the definition of that lowness is that there can't be the same revelation in this lower world as it could be in a world that's high. Okay, Maimer, where we see this in the statement of the Chazal, it says, not a Yimino Yubar Shemayim. Again, this is brought down in the Basilagani Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Hashem stretched out his right hand and he created the heavens. Not a Smoilo Yubar Oretz. And he stretched out his left hand and he created the earth. What does the Chazal mean by the right hand being stretched out and the left hand being stretched out? So right is the stronger hand. That shows on more revelation. Left is on the weaker hand. It's less revelation. Kind of this means the Shemayim, heavens, that refers to the spiritual worlds, the higher world. In Sham, not the Minai over there, he stretched out his right. In his Galus, it's the idea of the revelation of the higher lights. And the earth, those are our lower worlds. Misham, not a smoiler. And over there, he stretched out his left. That the light is not so much revealed. And the reason for that, why is there this distinction of the higher worlds and the lower worlds? Because that's what Mamal Kalam is about. Because the light of Mamal Kalam has divisions of details and parts, not like Seiv Kalam, that's one infinite whole. And also it comes down tailored in an internalized fashion in the creation. Okay. Therefore, even once we do all we could do in a gamai, the avoid of the zichuch, also through the avoid of refining the material nature of the creations, it's not the same, the light, the way it is down here below, than the way the light is above. Because as much as we refine ourselves, we're still in this low physical world, and therefore the Olam Mamala has a different revelation for the lower worlds than the higher. As opposed to the light of Kalam, when it comes down in a revealed way, that's not a usual thing, but when it does come down, the Gilui, he's equal all over, because there's no divisions of details within himself. The and the way it shines into the world is not in the way that the oil comes into a keli, but rather the way it comes down, but rather the glory of the Eibishter becomes in the way of Istalkus, like again, Basel Agani speaks about, and the Rebbe's Basel Agani speaks about, that it's in the way of Reimanus and not enclosed, not in a pneumius. It's ad in avoida. How does it come about? Through avoida, like it says over there, the Lashon that the Rebbe brings down, the Frierdiker brings down, Kadaskafi Sitrachra, when Sitrachra becomes sublimated, so then the Stalik according to Kuchabrichu, so then the glory of the Kuchabrichu becomes raised in all the worlds. Therefore, it shines specifically down here below. The Eira Soiviv can come down here below specifically because there's no limitation. Because the avoid is specifically in this world, which is Utat Sabriya, because this world is the purpose of the entire creation. Gam Tachlis Briya Soilim, the goal and the purpose of even the highest worlds was only for this world, and therefore they don't get the connection with the Eira Soiviv like we get in this world, because here is where the avodah is done, and the avodah is the cause for this great revelation of the Eira Soiviv. So therefore, we in our world are connected to that, and the Olam Yonim only feel themselves as ancillary to our world because they only contribute to our existence. Any questions before we go on? Okay, we're holding on the bottom of page Yud. Yud Aleph, Ois Dal. Going back to the idea of the association of miracles with the Schar Mitzvah, we said. Since Schar Mitzvah is Soiviv, and since we know that when a person has a miracle occur to him, it will take away from his Schar, that must mean that the miracles and the Schar are on the same level. This be understood in the Schar Mitzvah. That the idea of miracles is like the idea of the reward of a mitzvah. The Geshench is Schar Mitzvah in Yonam Shachas Eira Soiv Kolam Shalom Ma'il Miseder Shtal Shlo is just like the reward of a mitzvah. Is the idea of drawing down the light of Soiv that's higher than the whole Seder Shtal Shlo's top of page Beis. In Ikenu Gam Inyan Anes Shalom Ma'il Mateva. So to the idea of a miracle, it's higher than the idea of nature. So he's going to bring different associations of the word teva to indicate this. Before you can understand how nes is higher than a teva, let's understand the meaning of the word teva. The teva meloshin tviyam, the word teva is the word sinking. You might, like we say in Nos Yasher, tu b'yamsuf, they sunk, they drowned in the sea. What does that mean in the idea of ruchnis and yonim? Dainu shalakutsu behelim v'hester b'nivroim. That godliness is concealed and covered in the creations. That's what nature is about. And another idea that the word teva contains in it, matbeya. Matbeya means a coin. Similar to the expression of the Mishnah Sanhedrin, Adam tevea kama matbeyos. A person mints or stamps many coins with one seal. In other words, a person, how do they make a coin? There's a die stamp, it's called, and they hit it on the metal while it's soft and hot. And therefore, when he makes it, every coin is identical because it's all coming from the same stamp. Cool, they're all likened to each other. Hashem stamped every person with the seal of Adam Rishon, with that mold of Adam Rishon, and not one person is similar to the other, even though they came from the same stamp. The aim parts of fame, because their forms are not similar one to another. So the idea of stamping, that's the idea of teva, which means the idea of each one being stamped, the idea of nature, the way the Eibishter makes the idea of a stamp, the way the Eibishter stamps nature, that's coming from a level of a Malakal. And Malakal Almin has many details. And therefore, because of all these details, every single thing is different than the other. And therefore, you could have all these different people, even though they all came from the same form of Adam Rishon. So we see in the word teva, nature, both the idea that God is concealed and the level of the distinctions and differences. These are two characteristics of Memalkla. But the idea of a miracle is beyond nature. It's in such a manner that it shines in the world a totally new light. It's the idea of drawing down the light of Soyu Kalam that's completely beyond the world's totally. So that's not, so first of all, not being sunken into the world. It's not hidden in the world. He's saying them as and even more so, Meir ba'olam kifishu bim b'tziyusay ba'hagbalois v'ativim. He says an interesting thing. The revelation of the light of Soiv that takes place through the miracle, it's still, even though a miracle is like we always say, it's breaking the rules of nature, but the world as a world continues existing. And the world as the world still has its natural boundaries and rules and limitations. Even after the miracle takes place, or even during the occurrence of the miracle, the entire world is still running by nature. It's not that the entire world stops running. In one detail, it was a miracle. So the sea split, all the waters in the world split. Gravity still was a thing. The winds that held up the water was a thing. Solid was still solid. Liquid was still liquid, etc., etc. It was just in one aspect. What does that mean? That the Soivev came into the world as our world is. In Cain, I'm shocked. The drawing down of the light of Soiv Kalam is in the world as the world situation is in. That's what it means. Gave those that fear you a nace, a miracle to be raised up. The second explanation in Nace Noises, the mind brought down. The miracle affects an elevation in the world itself. The matz of the loss of love is similar to what we said, that when Mashiach comes, we're going to have a revelation of the Eretz Soiv, and that's going to be here in this world. Whereas now there's no revelation of the world of Soiv in a similar fashion. When a miracle takes place, so there is an elevation of the world, at least in that area, or even in the general aspect of the world, that the world is still a world, but it has this glimpse of Soiv Kalam becomes an elevation in the world. Any questions? Let's see also if we can make a little bit of a dent in Noise Hey. Okay, line 25, I say. To be able to understand what we're drawing down through miracles more in depth. In Ksiv, it says that the Hashem is the God of Deos. The Ashtei Deos, there are two views, two approaches. Das Elin with Das Tachten, the approach and the view of things from above, and the approach and view of things from below. Das Tachten with the lower view and approach, that's the approach from our perspective, from the created being's perspective. And more in detail, the whole Seder Ishtalshalos' approach, not just created beings, but anything in the Memalach Olam Seder Ishtalshalos' view of things. The Das Elyon, who Mitzad HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the upper view, the view from above, that's the view from Hashem. Even more specifically, it's the approach from the Oiden Sof that's prior to the Tzimtzum. Page Gimel, next page. Das Tachten, who the view from below is that the coming into being of the created beings is something from nothing. We say we are created from nothing. What is that a view? That view is saying, yes, the created being feels himself, I am something. But that's the source that's bringing him into being. Even since he doesn't grasp it, he doesn't comprehend it, he doesn't feel it. Therefore, it's called I. So that is the idea of yesh ma'ayin. Let's learn another 4 lines or so. Though he is aware that there's something that's bringing into being, logically it can't be, I came out of nowhere. Still in all. Since he has no appreciation of what this source is, therefore he calls it, I came out of nowhere. I came out of ayin. That could be to such a degree that he's not even sensing the source. Like we explained earlier, the tava malashim tuba b'yamsuf tavas, in the word that sunk into the sea, that are drowned in the sea. The source that's bringing him to being is sunken and drowned and covered in the created being, and the created being is not feel it, as opposed to what we'll talk about tomorrow about the Das Elyon, the totally opposite view of us and this world, that the Yesh is above and we are what is I. Any questions?